What is faith? All the readings today have to do with that question. What is faith? In the letter to the Hebrews, which we don't hear today, there is this classic definition we all study when we're in theology, a classic definition of faith. Faith is the realization of what is hoped for and evidence of things not seen, from the letter to the Hebrews. Well, let me give you an example. Two men were in a plane crash, and they ended up on a deserted island. And the sensible one tried to figure out what they were going to do to be rescued. The other man started to shout, "I make $250,000 a year." Well, the other one was a little exasperated. He continues to figure out what they're going to do to get off the island. And the man says again, I make $250,000 a year. And the other one finally says, that you make $250,000 a year isn't going to do us any good. He said, oh, yes, it is. I tithe 10% of everything I make to the CSC. Father Gary is going to find me. Faith is the realization of what is hoped for and evidence of things not seen. I say about myself, I say I have a deep and abiding faith that comes and goes. I believe I'm standing here because of the work of the Holy Spirit that led to my vocation. And as I firmly believe those signs that it's a time when they occurred over 20 years ago, and that stirring of the Holy Spirit, I can grow doubtful when I don't receive new signs. I want more and more of them. And if I don't get them, my faith can become challenged, less strong than I might want. And it is in those times that I can most empathize with the apostles when they say, increase our faith. There are signs we need, and they come. They come more often than we might realize, but they come, and they strengthen and bolster, and they can increase our faith. What all of these readings tell us today is that we are all called to be prophets. We are all responsible for each other's eternal salvation. That's what they're getting at in the second part of the gospel reading today. To pass on the faith. That is the role that we have in our community. We are all pilgrims on a journey together of love and truth, seeking and longing for closer union with our loving God. The question is, how do we show that? I guess what is ultimately most important is that we are to be a light to one another, to be an example of our faith, and sometimes when we may not even realize it. We are all privileged to be a witness to that love of our faith, and it is that faith, the faith of the entire people, that strengthens our relationship with our loving God. All the talk about all things new can easily get us focused on school closings and pastors getting reassigned, and I get that. And yet there's a lot more to this plan as well. It is about how each of us is going to work toward our goal of being a prophetic voice to one another, first and foremost within our families and with our neighbors, our friends, our co-workers. We all need to affirm again our faith that Jesus Christ can show all of us the way. Believers to a stronger faith, unbelievers to be brought to the faith. And when we are fully aware of the Holy Spirit's power to transform us and others, we will have both the energy and the imagination to find paths to faith for those in need. That's exactly what all this talk about the new evangelization is about. Yes, I have a deep and abiding faith that comes and goes. When we're here, when we're surrounded by other faithful people, then we're not fearful. For us, then maybe our faith is strong. But maybe when we're not around other faith-filled people, or when we're challenged, then maybe our faith is not as strong as we might like it to be. Some of the people here today are just beginning college. It is a time when their faith is often tested. They are called to make choices on their own. The alum, I don't think he's here today, the alum, Frank, that spoke at, oh, there you are. Yeah. Oh, you have a mask on today. He spoke about that last night, about leaving home and making choices for the first time. But all of us are here today to remind one another that this journey of faith is not a solitary one. That's what we heard last night as well. And when we think it is, we can become doubtful or fearful, or our faith can waver. It can come and go. These people here, you are a tiny representation of the people that are out there to help all of us succeed in our journey of faith together. For our own peace and serenity, our journey needs to include our building of friendships and our service to one another, a willingness to be an example of Christ's love to the power and the people that we encounter everywhere, and most importantly, that our time include a journey of faith together. This is part of the prayer for all things new. Commissioned by your Son and empowered by the Spirit to go and make disciples of all nations, strengthen us by the power of your grace as we bring the good news of salvation into the lives of all those we touch, so that individual hearts and all of society may be converted to you and all things might be made new. Well, let us include in that prayer that we experience a time when we will come to grow in the full knowledge of the reality of God's love, and that we will let that love in, that we will let the power of God enter our lives, that there will be an openness to God's love. And if there is, it will be an exciting journey of faith together. Yes, I know this. I have a deep and abiding faith that comes and goes, but that faith comes to be most present, strongest, when I recognize that we are all in this journey together, and that our faith in our unseen God is a light for each of us.